My name is Shay Hardy, and I am the Amsterdam partner for the Women in Tech Regatta. This is our third event, third time doing it in Amsterdam, and I'm excited that you're here to join the many flavors of technology education, and school is only one of them, panel discussion. So for those of you who don't know, we've been doing the Wit Regatta for 4 years now. The founder is Melody Berenger. Hopefully you've met her before in some of the previous sessions or in life if you are here with us for the second or third year. She's an amazing woman. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's been doing the Wit Regatta in Seattle. That's where she's from. That's where she started. She then took it to Vancouver and then to Amsterdam. And we usually have it in person. It's an amazing thing where we're walking around the city, we're going from business to business, having these live events. It's quite amazing. But with COVID, we're now virtual, and we wanted to look for a way to still bring the same energy and the same connection that we had in person online. So we tried to think of all these different ways, and Zoom has been the best platform to do what we do, to have that connection. What the Wit Regatta is all about, gathering women together in tech to mentors, peers, and resources, and to strengthen our community, advance your career, and to learn from one another. And while we're here to elevate women in tech, we also believe tech is for everyone, and that goes beyond gender here. So we're so happy when we have men in the audience and on the panel to share their personal stories, to talk, to give their perspectives, to talk to us. So we really want this to be both sides talking to each other, every side. We want all kinds of diversity here. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Some of you I see are familiar faces. You know all this already, so just bear with me to let other people who are new to this know. This is being recorded, and at WIT, we value connection and building relationships. So we highly encourage you to turn on your video and be present and engage with us face to face today. However, because it is being recorded, you might not prefer to be on camera, and that is totally your choice. You're welcome to turn your camera off. We will have a breakout session for this panel discussion, and the rooms will be for 2 to 4 people. Those will not be recorded, so we really do encourage you to turn your video on at that time. Because most of us in the audience are introverts, as soon as you hear the word breakout room, you leave. And I get it. I totally get it. I just want to encourage you to push past that feeling of being uncomfortable and stay with us and join the conversation and get a chance to tell your side or your perspective on the discussion today. The best way to view this is we find that it's in speaker view so that you can see the person talking and not all the other faces. So if you can, put it in speaker view so that you can enjoy the show a little bit better that way. Hopefully you're all following us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think we're everywhere. And if you aren't, please do so. We'll put the, I think Isabel is our tech person. Can you raise your hand, Isabel? She's our tech person. Isabel, if you could put I think we have it there. If you could put the social handles in the chat for me, I'd appreciate that. We also want you to share your social handle if you like, so we could all connect to each other. And if you could share that in the chat, that would be great. We want to encourage you guys to engage with us on social media. So if there's something that you liked, something that we said, share the quote and tag us. Take a selfie, do something crazy, tag us and use our hashtag relationships are the true currency, or hashtag AMSWIT20. That's AMSWIT20. And tag us at Wit Regatta. We want to see what you see from your perspective. We hope everyone will dive deep into the conversation and contribute fully, learn something new, come away with at least 1 or 2 new connections. We're always trying to encourage people to find a new boss, a new colleague, a new best friend. This is what we're all about, because for us, relationships are the true currency. And last thing, I want to invite you to our closing party, which is Thursday night at 7 o'clock. We're going to get together, connect, continue the conversation, and close off the end of the show. Now, I want to hand it over to Deborah Carter. Deborah, I've known Deborah for forever, forever. We both live in Amsterdam. I think my son was 3 or 4. No, I must have known you.
Yeah.
Little bitty kid. And Deborah was one of the first women that I met here. And at the time I met her, she was leaving to go to Canada. I was like, oh no, I found you and I like you so much. You're leaving. But we've always kept in touch, which is great. And she came back and we continue our friendship.
Thank you so much, Shay. What a sweet introduction. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. Today, our panel discussion topic is the many flavors of technology education, and school is only one of them. And it's exactly this. We're going to dive into this topic. We've got some really exciting panelists here. The big takeaway is that, you know, in this world that we live in, there's many roads to Rome, that there's many ways to learn about technology, to learn how to use it, create with it, and do all kinds of things with technology. And we're hoping that this panel is going to give you some inspiration because of the different perspectives on how to do that. I'm super excited today to introduce our 3 panelists too. I'm going to introduce them and then we'll get into our talks. The first is Miriam Tocino. And Miriam, I've known Miriam for now, I think a few years. Miriam is really inspirational because she is teaching kids about technology in a really wonderful way, which is storytelling. Our next panelist is Shaquille Velbohm, who is super inspirational. He's an in-demand 3D designer, and his story is interesting because he is a 3-time college dropout, but he is a top-class 3D designer who's taught himself all of these 3D design skills since he was 9 years old, using online resources and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And our last panelist is Parvez Khan, who is a global director of research and insight for Pearson, which is the world's leading education technology company. So all of these 3 people have different perspectives on technology education, and we're really looking forward to going deeper and exploring. I'm going to start off, not because I'm selfish, but because I just want to frame the discussion. I'm going to tell you a bit about my story and what I do in terms of technology education before passing things over to the other panelists. So about me. I'm here today wearing 2 hats. I am the founder and managing director of New Tech Kids, and I'm also the managing director of Preparation Tech. Now, I'll start by talking about New Tech Kids. So 6 years ago, my son was in primary school, and I noticed he wasn't learning anything about technology. And I was worried because I know that, you know, the world is focused on technology now, and kids from a young age need to acquire these skills. So with a great team, I launched New Tech Kids as a tech education academy, which focus on teaching primary school students about technology, how it works, why it works, and how to think in order to create technological solutions. So we have been teaching in schools, after school, in the school vacations, and overseas in places like Switzerland and the Middle East. A couple of years ago, we noticed that, you know, we were getting the usual suspect of kids in our programs, which were boys who were crazy about building and about coding and everything else. And we wanted to attract a more diverse and inclusive group of kids. So we made a slight pivot to focus not just on coding, but on technological innovation. And we group a lot of things into technological innovation. We are covering computer science and programming. We're giving kids exposure to robotics, and we're really encouraging them to think critically about technology. And so by making that pivot, we were able to see some huge, huge changes in the kids that we were recruiting. All of a sudden, we were getting more girls, more kids of color, and kids who really didn't have a background in technology at all. And what's even better is over the years, we're seeing a lot of our graduates of our technology programs choosing to continue to study technology in high school. So they're entering specialized tech programs like the Technasium schools, and also choosing the coding specific tracks of learning at their schools. So, you know, we've been running New Tech Kids for 6 years, and we've taught thousands of kids. And it's great that we're teaching kids, but we're only reaching a fraction of kids. And this is because schools are not very quick to get our kinds of programs into them. And often we get the comment from teachers and parents that, tech is not really for my kid. It's a bit too geeky. To which we throw up our hands and say, oh no, because we don't think kids should be, like every kid should be a programmer or developer or a computer scientist, but every kid should have a background in technology and a basic understanding. So we've done a lot of thinking about that. And recently, Gallup and Google produced a research report that talked about attitudes towards computer science education. And it was really interesting. I'm going to read you two quotations. One, quote, parents and guardians and kindergarten to grade 12 educators continue to see computer science education as a key component of their children's or students' future success. And the next quote, students are generally unconvinced that computer science is important for them to learn. So you're seeing this difference in perceptions towards computer science education. The parents and the teachers know it's important for kids, but the kids are not convinced that it is relevant to them. As a response to this kind of general thinking, I helped to launch Preparation Tech. I don't know if you can see me okay. Yeah. Yes. It's a nonprofit foundation which is dedicated to educating people about how tech is transforming every career, field, and industry. And we interview students, tradespeople, and professionals about what they do and how technology intersects with their work. And the goal really is to change the narrative around people who work in tech. So that, we don't just assume that it's white or Asian guys, but that we see that tech is full of a group of diverse and inclusive individuals that are doing all kinds of interesting stuff in tech. So I'm happy to say that my fellow panelists, Miriam, Shakil, and Parvez, have done Preparation Tech interviews. Their interviews are on the site, so if you want to know more about them, you can definitely check it out. But we have to start showing our young people, kids, teens, kids that are going to have to choose like their study and career paths, some really inspiring role models, and also the vast amount of opportunities that are available to them when they have tech education skills and knowledge. I've done 25 interviews, and here are some of the top things that I can take away and I can share with you. We can't expect school to be the only way that kids acquire tech knowledge, skills, and information. They're just moving too slow. We need to harness technology to provide new learning opportunities for kids. We're talking online courses, playing games and developing games, and also participating in online competitions and hackathons. These are all new ways of learning about technology. And we need to encourage kids to be self-starters so that they can identify and explore their interests, teach themselves new skills, and basically develop their own learning curriculums. And lastly, I want to say the most innovative people that I've interviewed share this trait. They are multidisciplinary. They combine the arts with technology, with science, with philosophy, and they are able to take everything that they know and to create new things that never existed before. And I'll give you a few examples. Miral Kotob, who is a dancer, but she's also a software engineer. She created a company called Illuminate. They create these suits where they dance in the dark to music, and they have all these patterns. And they came in as a finalist on America's Got Talent. We've got David Hanson, who is one of the world's leading inventors of human-like robots, who started off as a sculptor at Disney and now is doing like really advanced robotics. And lastly, Kate Edwards, who was a geographer and a cartographer making maps. And she was working for Microsoft and said, we need a new kind of practice so that we can make sure that the digital content that we create is okay for all countries. And so she created the genre of digital content culturalization. These are just a few kinds of people that we can use to really inspire students to learn about technology and to take technology programs. And this is basically so important that we've got the role models out there that kids can relate to, and we just need to amplify their stories. I'm going to stop with my talk, and I'm now going to introduce Miriam Tocino, who has a completely different and unique approach to teaching kids about technological education, technology education through storytelling. So welcome, Miriam, and please tell us your story.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you to the organizers, and thank you everybody there on the chat that I'm seeing for joining us today for this panel. It is an honor to be part of it, and I hope that we all can take home some inspiration from our chat today. So I'm going to mention something that already Deborah referred to in her presentation, and it is that our children are growing up in a world driven by technology. And they feel naturally attracted to it, but as consumers, only a few see themselves as creators of technology. And in a world where every company out there is becoming a tech company, understanding computers is a superpower. And it is our responsibility as parents, caregivers, and educators to communicate that to our children, raising digital citizens as we are. So the question is, how can we present the world of computers to them in a way that is fun and exciting and that is full of possibilities and adventures? That's our job here. And here's another reason why engaging our children today, and especially girls, is even more important. Every day, algorithms are increasing the impact that they have in our daily lives. But who is writing the technology behind them? And if we look now at the people working in tech, we'll see that less than 20% are women. And if we want to build a world that includes everybody, we need those teams building our digital future to be more diverse. And I think we all here agree on that. So if we don't do anything, we are not going to change those numbers. Our children, boys and girls, will keep using the technology around them as consumers. But what if we do it right? They'll start seeing themselves as the designers and the creators of our digital future. And now, let me tell you a story. Because earlier this year, I attended the We Are Tech Women Conference in the UK. And a dad reached out to me and he said, I have a 6-year-old girl at home who I'd like to encourage into STEM careers. But she already sees technology as a boy thing. And that's very early. Yes, it is. I need to make me travel in time because my dad also wanted me to go into computer science. So now we are talking here about how I work in the tech industry, but it wasn't like that since the very beginning. So he used to say, Miriam is the future. And we now know that he was right and that I missed the point. And I instead studied architecture. I was already 30 years old when I started to get interested in technology, and I taught myself how to code. And I discovered that working with computers could be something fun and exciting, full of creativity, and that allowed me to help other people around me. Those are the things that I initially related to architecture and not with computer science. Ever since, I've worked as a software developer, and I also worked as a programming teacher, and I taught hundreds of students how to switch their careers into tech in a development bootcamp in Amsterdam. 3 years ago, when I had my son, I was still teaching, and it was clear that I started to think about how I'm going to introduce him to the world of computers and how I could bring some of the elements that I used in my classes into people's homes and help them open up the conversation around technology. And I started saying, wouldn't it be cool if we're writing stories happening inside a computer about how computers do math or graphics or how the internet works? And what if they were told by a 0 and a 1? And what if they lived in the binary world? And that's how Therus and Ona were born. So this is Therus and this is Ona. They are a 0 and a 1 living inside computers, living inside your computer, and they are sharing their stories. So they are the main two characters of a picture book series. And here's how it works. So I'm going to give you an example with this book here. Yeah. So this is the first title in the series. There's one more published already and 2 more are coming in 2021. So Welcome to Our World is written in the form of a poem, which turns into a song. And first you read the book with your children. You learn about Ceres and Ona, you talk about bits and bytes, and I'm gonna show you some pages of it. So everything starts with a little boy, in this case, my little boy, wondering what's going on inside a computer. This is our home. And then he's introduced to those bits and those bytes, and there are many of them inside the computer. And then I normally said that I thought that computers were gray and boring. I was telling my dad that this is so gray and this is so boring. So my whole dream with this project was, this is a computer inside and this is nothing but gray and boring. So once they know the story, you tell them, look, this is also a song, and you go to the website of the book and then you start singing the song, you start dancing it. And then by that time you said, look, do you know that they use code to play the music? So I work together with a live coding musician, and some of the noises that you hear in the back of the song, it's done with code snippets. And then they get to, at that point, they're already interested. That's the first contact of those children with the world of programming. They're already into it, you know, and then they start gaining superpowers from their own, its own history. And well, you can find all the books in the Therus and Ona series in Amazon. You can just simply search for Therus and Ona and they will pop up there. And there's also a free series that I shared via email called The ABC of Computers, in which I only, apart from stories, I also shared unplugged games that you can do easily at home or in the classroom to get kids engaged. And also parents and educators and caregivers, they are as important as reaching the kids. So if you'd like to be part of it, you can subscribe at therusandona.com/newsletter. I'd be happy to have you there. And if you like what you're seeing, you can connect on Twitter or LinkedIn at Miriam Tocino. And I'd love to connect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Your approach to educating kids is really unique, and I love it because, you know, you're educating parents and adults as well. So thank you so much. Our next panelist is Shaquille Velboom. As I said, Shaquille is super inspiring because he's taken a path that a lot of people haven't in terms of educating himself and really directing his own learning to master 3D design. So Shaquille, tell us about you and your approach to technology education. Sorry about that.
No worries. Yes, my name is Shaquille Feldbaum. Thank everybody for being in attendance and being at this conference. So my story is basically that as a very young child, I've always been way too stubborn to kind of follow the rules. And that is kind of the thread of everything that I've been doing so far. So if I went with my mom to kind of go take an hearing aid test when I was like 2 or 3 years old, I wasn't playing along with pressing the buttons to see if I would hear anything. So that has just been like a constant fad. Once I got to elementary school, I wasn't really into reading like the children fiction books about like fairy tales and stuff. So they thought I had a learning disability. But at the same age, my mom would take me to libraries, and I would read encyclopedias about dinosaurs and knew their Latin words and everything for them. So it was just that I had a certain disconnect of following the rules and the patterns of what traditional education should be, I guess. So at an older age, when I kind of got in my early teens, excuse me, my grandfather kind of started to take me outside of the house, and because they had like a garage that was parented to their house. So every summer or every weekend that I spent over at my grandparents' house, I wasn't basically allowed to be in the house. I was supposed to be in the garage working with my grandfather. So I was just exposed through a different amount of not only mechanical expertise, but also just people that were kind of making their living about doing things that they love to do, working with their hands and creating stuff. So I was just exposed to a lot of different forms of information and the different people that were encouraging me, but at the same time also had a very high standard for me. So once I started kind of drawing and stuff, and when I was 8 years old, my father kind of started to see that I was recognizing certain patterns in cars, and that I would have a certain ratio of the wheels, how far they would be apart from each other with the roof line and stuff like that when I was drawing. So he recognized that even though I was young and it was a little bit primitive, that I probably had a little bit of a talent of doing this. So I was handed a computer with some 3D software called Google SketchUp, and he handed me like a big map of just all papers that he printed out that was like an educational roadmap of how to learn the software. And I kind of dismissed it. I kind of put it to the side because I felt like that way of learning on paper just wasn't the way for me to kind of gain my information. So I went to YouTube because that was the first emerging kind of time period when it kind of came to the internet. And a lot of people started to share what they've been doing and on different software systems, and just in general, if you wanted to learn how to play the guitar, you could do that as well. So I started to use that as like my internet library and started to learn from it and gain all of these skill sets and information from it. And through these software systems, I kind of figured out that there was more to just designing a car with these body panels, because now I was introduced to SolidWorks. And in SolidWorks, I could also do mechanical engineering. So I would be able to then kind of make a complete motor. But because my grandfather was also working on motors, this was then when I was like 14, 15, I would be able to take my laptop with me to my grandfather's house and show him the things that I would make. And then he would have comments on, I should maybe change this or add some more thickness to the walls here, this, that, and the third. You know, he would just be able to guide me in a very specific way. So I had all of these people around me. My dad himself is like a electrical engineer and a safety specialist who's worked on drill platforms in the North Sea. So I just have all of these influence around me and this exposure through technological knowledge and all of that. So I've been able to kind of figure out a way for myself to use my creative skills and my ability to kind of obtain all of this knowledge to then figure out a way on how to use this hobby as also a way to kind of get my bills paid. And then it's been the final stage of my life, I guess, because once I was 17, I kind of had already the ability that I have now when it comes to 3D designing, but I didn't have the full maturity on how to recognize what certain opportunities were, how to tackle them and all of that. So that was like 6 years ago. And then I started on my journey of trying to become an engineer. So I would go to the colleges, like you said, I was a 3-time college dropout. And the first time I kind of attended, college, it was because it was in South Rotterdam. I'm from Amsterdam. And that was like a journey to travel like 2 hours and 15 minutes every single day in the morning to even get there. And like I said, I'm very stubborn, so I don't really follow rules. So usually I go to bed at like 4 o'clock in the morning instead of kind of like 12 o'clock or something. So that was a very hard thing for me to combine. And I decided to drop out the first time. The second time, I was kind of already working on, I was now 19 years old, and I was already kind of working on designs, freelance work for people. And I had to make a choice if I wanted to be able to kind of pay some bills and stuff, or if I wanted to be able to be in school. So I kind of chose the work before school because I was already kind of working on the things I would be going to school for, and if that makes sense. So I kind of decided to follow that path. And then the third time, I kind of was in product design, and that was also like a college degree that would really like align with the stuff that I'm trying to do. But they're kind of introducing people from the first time to being creative instead of kind of having somebody that is already creative to figure out how to take that to a professional level. So I had to relearn and unlearn instead of just gain new information. And that was also like a difficult process for me. So I decided to drop out for the third time that time. But after that, for me, I started to even develop more, and I started to use all of my time that I was also working with other people to just add to my network and add to just also my social media presence online with just making my own projects and stuff. So my design skills not only grew, but also the people that were using me also kind of that network grew as well. So I was able to then, when COVID hit, to kind of make a transition to stop doing design work and engineering for basically people that would come to me with freelance jobs, and try to take it more into the storytelling world. Because I was seeing on LinkedIn, when I was looking for people to kind of get jobs from, I was seeing that they didn't really give a lot of opportunities for people that weren't college educated. And I understand that, and rightfully so, because if you need to put something on the market, then sometimes you need to be able to justify that it's going to be safe, and I understand all of that. So I was trying to figure out then, if that is not the path for me, then what can I do? And that path was more into the visual storytelling, creating stuff. And if I just quickly turn my camera around, you can see that this is now a video game with my own face as kind of like the character of the video game in a 3D design world that I have with all of these cars that I made lined up. And this is going to be like my own virtual museum of just a ginormous building with everything that I designed. And that is just a little bit of a sneak peek because there is going to be a website that is going to be unveiled very soon. But that is just basically what is capable now, because I can just take everything that my whole creativity enhances and put them into a video game production world where there are literally no limits. So that is just the best thing for me about COVID. That transition to become a storyteller instead of just a product designer is for me has become one of the best things that's happened in my life. So I'm very happy about it, and also happy to share this story because I think that a lot of people, like you say, that the women in tech, me as a Black man, is probably also a very similar struggle sometimes to get into that boys club for people up there. And that is why that independent route for me as a freelancer could hopefully also like inspire people to maybe try the same, because we live in a world with so many loopholes that the internet presents, because there's no more gatekeeper that can prevent you from doing anything. There's just you and the limit of the internet. And if you have the reach to reach the people, you'll be able to be successful in whatever field you try to achieve. So that's my story.
Thank you so much. When I reached out to Shaquille and he said he would talk, I was super excited because this is real, folks. This is like, what he's saying is so true, that tech is opening a window that's going to change the power structure, and school and education is not the gatekeeper anymore. It's talent, it's hustle. And as a community, we have to be allies to really help people like Shaquille and like all of you guys on the panel that maybe don't get the same kind of chances that someone else would. So we're so happy that you spoke, Shaquille. Thank you so much for that. Our last panel. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And folks, if you need any work done in 3D design, you know where to go.
Thank you.
Great. Our final panelist is Dr. Parvez Khan, who, as I said, is a Global Research and Insights Director at Pearson, which is the gold standard in education, technology, and learning. Parvez, welcome. Tell us your take on technology education.
Definitely delighted to. By the way, I agreed with everything you said, Deborah, absolutely spot on. And what inspirational stories. Shaquille, I must say, as a mother to a teenage boy, staying up until 4 o'clock every evening, every night, that would be quite tough. So let's need a manual on how to bring up boys like you as well, but absolutely inspirational. I love it. I'm not going to share a story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share some food for thought on the way technology will shape the future state of schooling, changing the look of the classroom and what's learnt in it. Now, before this pandemic, technology was already disrupting education. We've seen a number of innovations in this space, but arguably the pace of change has been slow. But what this pandemic has done and will continue to do is rapidly accelerate innovation. This pandemic, through all the disruption to schooling, also planted the seeds of a new type of learning model for coming decades, one that will be very different from which has been operating largely unchanged for over 100 years. We believe that technology, is the driving force for this change, particularly state-of-the-art artificial intelligence. Over the next few years, expect to see an increase in adoption amongst schools of learning solutions with online offerings that will seamlessly switch between in-person and virtual contexts. So say we have another pandemic, there's another lockdown in the future, or say something more benign, your child's got a cold and they can't come into school, or they've sustained a sport injury and they're recuperating at home. There is no reason for them to miss any of their education because, one, they can simply tune into live streaming of their lessons and join their classmates from home. Or they can log on to their own online adaptive learning platform, which will have an intimate knowledge of their learning needs and have assignments ready for them to complete at home. Or say they're away from their teacher and they get stuck on something like algebra, no problem. We're going to have a virtual tutor on hand to help explain that to them. Or say they've got a big test or exam coming up, but they can't get to school or they can't get to the test centre because of another lockdown or some other reason. No problem. Their school will be able to offer them online remote proctoring or online invigilation using biometric data, such as face recognition or fingerprinting on their computer screen, which can authenticate who they are, and then they can take their exam wherever they are. As education technology develops, I believe schools can offer greater personalization, engagement, flexibility in the learning of its students. Through large-scale data processing, deep analysis of student learning behavior, speech recognition, automatic assessments, for example, artificial intelligence can now make customized education available at scale and at relatively low cost. Imagine AI algorithms being able to tailor learning programs to suit each student's individual mode of learning, enabling students to study what they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. Also imagine how much more time teachers will have to spend with their students, actually teaching, developing those one-to-one relationships with their students, rather than spending countless hours marking classroom work, tests, and homework, because an AI marker can step in and do that. As AI gets more sophisticated, it might be possible for machines to read the expressions on the student's face to indicate that they're struggling to grasp a concept, that they're bored, that it can modify, say, a lesson that's delivered on an online platform, or in the case of a lesson delivered online by a teacher, it can send a message to that teacher to notify them of what's happening to their students remotely. This idea of customized curriculum for every student needs is simply not scalable or affordable now for the average school, but it might be in the not so distant future as a result of AI-powered technology. But, and there is a flip side to this story, the pandemic has also exposed a digital divide in both developing and developed countries like the UK and Amsterdam. So just focusing on the developed countries, it's exposed a gap between those students with internet access, with broadband, those students with access to multiple devices, laptop, PCs, smartphones, those students with supportive home learning environments, and those students without all of these things. For low income and underserved students, this shift online has exacerbated other pre-existing inequalities, making it difficult for students to complete their schoolwork and engage fully in their education. The lack of access in technology at home also negatively impacts on the student, parent and school communication. It's more difficult for parents to support their children's learning at home. So the question is, how can education technology best serve the interests of students and teachers in economically challenged areas? There is a moral imperative for governments, tech providers, and educational institutions to come together and remove barriers of access and cost by providing the technology at low cost or free. We need to see more schemes offering, for example, free broadband and free laptops to students. But there is another problem, a potentially more harmful outcome of the use of AI in education unless we take action now. This is something Mariam actually flagged up as well in her story. The starting point for artificial intelligence always has to be human intelligence. Humans program the machines to learn and develop in a certain way, which means they are passing on their own unconscious biases. Now, the tech industry is still sadly overwhelmingly dominated by white men. When there is no diversity in the room, it means the machines are learning the same biases and internal prejudices of the majority white workforce that are developing them. Could the AI engines we develop to help our children learn, in turn learn to be sexist and racist? These pre-existing inequalities in our societies make this a very, very complex area. It flags up that issues of cost and access are only one dimension of digital inequality. Economic, social, and cultural exclusion are also powerful barriers that must be addressed. And if we do that, and we seek to solve these inequalities, then I believe state-of-the-art artificial intelligence has the potential power to become an equalizer of education by democratizing education and improving learning outcomes for our students, for our children. Thank you. Back to Deborah.
Oh, Parvez, that was fantastic. Really exciting to see you talking about the potential of technology, but balancing that with an awareness of the downsides and the dangers. And I think your presentation really shows what you can do when you have research skills and data science skills, such as yourself, and how you can take all this data and come up with new products and services. That's the power of tech education, statistics, math, data science, programming, etc. Thank you so much, Parvez.
Thank you.
So now we're going to actually open it up. I've prepared a few questions that I would like each and every one of our panelists to answer. And the first one is, to make it really personal, when was the moment that you realized that you had to educate yourself about technology and start acquiring tech skills and knowledge? Parvez, I'm going to start with you.
Right, well, okay. I came to appreciate and respect the power of technology on business outcomes about 10 years ago, when it threatened me with the prospect of losing my livelihood. I had just set up my own research consultancy, and I was losing work to these larger research competitors who were offering all their market research surveys at a much lower cost than mine. And I was thinking, how could this be? They had moved to using iPads to collect data from, consumers. No data entry, and the client can have a dashboard of their results the very next day. Whilst I was still using a field force of researchers interviewing people on the high street using pen and paper clipboards. That was really common 10 years ago. You'd have somebody standing outside and they say, "Dear sir, dear madam, have a short survey, would you like to take part?" And they would just take their comments and they would sort of tick a box. I mean, that seems so old fashioned now, but that was only 10 years ago. It's still very, very common. I realized then, to survive, I had to invest in this technology. So although there was an initial upfront cost, it enabled me to compete with these larger players on a more equal level playing field.
Wow. Necessity is a mother of invention, right? Miriam, I want to ask you, when was the moment that you realized that you had to educate yourself about technology? Oh, you're on mute.
So two things happened for me. On the one hand, I'd worked as an architect already for some years. And in the beginning, I really like it, like the career in my 20s, when you start off from college, you're full of energy and it's like, I'm going to just do everything it takes, right? So we were winning competitions and we were working in very exciting projects. But here's what's happened. So at some point, I wasn't feeling happy because I was working too much. I was working overnight and I was working during the weekends. And I just didn't see myself doing that for my whole life. So it was out of necessity. And at the same time, me and my boyfriend started dating some months back. And we have been living together already for some time. He's a game programmer. And he loves his job and he likes coding over the weekend. So I was like, okay, there must be something in here, right? And it was his passion and enthusiasm that first spoke to me. And very soon after we started dating, we were having conversations about programming and frameworks and design patterns. I especially like design patterns. And it finally hit me. So finally I said, you know what, I'm going to quit my job as an architect. This is not going anywhere, and I'm going to stay home for 6 months. I'm going to teach myself how to code, and through online courses, something like Shakil was doing. And I initially tried to go back to university, but when I got the books, I said, there's no way that I'm going to do that again. And I like to tell this story to make it relatable for people, right? Because when I talk about Cerus and Nona, I say that my books are for children, but they are also for parents, educators, and caregivers, because we need to get them excited about technology. We all need to start talking about technology in a positive way and about the beautiful things that it can bring. And we need to become tech savvy if we want to inspire those children. Education doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, we need that triangle between the thing that we're teaching, the parent, the caregiver, the educator, and the child, right? If we don't activate those enablers, right? That parent, that teacher, you know, getting the message to that child, you know, there's no way that we're going to activate that child. And parents and educators, we become the first role models for our children. We see it again and again and again. And it is important that we are aware of that in our daily lives.
Great, thank you so much. Shaquille, your turn.
Yes. The first time I get introduced, basically for me, because it was always in my family, it's hard to like pinpoint it. But when the first trigger really came from me was, I think about 2012 when I was started to work in SolidWorks, and I also got a PlayStation 3 with Need for Speed Pros 3. And in that video game, I had the ability to like put a car into a virtual wind tunnel, and by adjusting like certain body panels, you would see the aerodynamic change on the body panels. And all of a sudden, like a switch happened that I stopped playing the video game because I now had SolidWorks and I could do that same thing, but with my own car designs. In SolidWorks, I could do aerodynamic testing and stuff. And that switched something for me, because like my parents bought now this whole PlayStation 3 and stuff, and now I don't even use it anymore because it's way more fun to me to kind of do it with my own designs. And that was a huge moment for me, because I started to just learn everything about cars, because I now wanted to make everything function as well instead of just making it look right. So yeah, I would say that point really triggered a lot for me in my learning curve to kind of really become sufficient at learning everything down to the last bolt about all of the things that I'm designing. So yeah.
Cool. Perfect. We have time for one quick question, if you could all be pretty quick. And that is, what is the most important thing about technology that every child should know? Let's take it away, Shaquille.
Freedom, I would say, because I could literally like put everything that I just showed you, like the museum and stuff. If I put that as a 3D printed object or something, I could start making my own merchandise based off of the scale models of the cars that I designed. I could put my own face on a 3D character and run around with it as if it is a virtual video game. There is literally like no limit to what I could produce. It's just the only thing is, how creative can I get myself? So if that's my only limit, and that is my passion in what I'm doing and stuff, so that is the big freedom for me that technology has enabled me. Because if I look at like all drawings from the steam engines that they hand draw, all of that stuff, like it's crazy to me to think that they didn't have a computer to synthesize how it would look, because I just don't know other worlds, you know. So that is kind of what I would say. It brings a great freedom to kind of express all of the creativities that I could come up with.
Great, thank you. Miriam.
Similar thing. So you could say that Cerus and Nona bring together what I've been learning during the past 20 years of my life. And I love that, right? So it brings together the architecture, the programming, and the teaching. But if you'd get to ask me which of those things gave me the biggest confidence to move forward with the project, it was my ability to code, my ability being tech savvy, right? Like knowing that you can take care of, you know, everything that's around it. So the website, setting up the shop, you know, the domain hosting, the email hosting, customizing Liquid templates, you know, like make the website look the way that you want, and anything that's to come, you know, the sky is the limit, right? Like to mention it. So I think something important here, it's like it gives you confidence. That's a very special thing to have, right, in today's world. And I'm going to leave it there because, yeah.
Confidence, I love it. Parvez, your comment.
Thank you. Well, I can really only talk about it in the context of the field of education, or at least that's what I want to say. And this is to everybody. I think it's still really, really important to point out that it's not always about the technology. You know, effective learning at the end of the day is about great teaching. That matters more than the presence or absence of any specific tool, whether it's textbooks or any interactive device. in the learning environment. Therefore, technology is effective to the extent that it can support teachers in delivering, scaling and sustaining effective teaching practices. So it's there in a supportive function, and that's what we need to all remind ourselves about technology.
I love it. Let's put the human back into technology, because at the end of the day, there's no technology without humans. Thank you so much, Parvez. I think this wraps up the panel and the discussion, and I believe I'm going to bring it back to Shay, because we're going to do the breakout rooms.
This is the part where most people run away. Don't run away. Stay with us. If you haven't gone into a break-in room before, this is a great opportunity for it to be your first time. This is really a chance for you to discuss the things that we're talking about, to share your insights, and also to meet more people, because relationships are the true currency. Make sure your camera is on inside the room. We're gonna, no recording in the room. Isabel will place you in a private room with about 2 to 3, maybe 4 possibly of attendees. If for some reason you get placed in a room and no one is present, just come back in the main room and we'll find you another room to put you in. If Isabel can put up the slide. These are the questions that we'll be discussing, but even when you're in the room, Isabel will also share the questions there. Do you have the slide? Yeah. You see the slide? Here are the questions, and always in the room, take a moment to introduce yourself, tell us where you are. And the questions are, how did you learn about technology? What did you learn about technology? And how would you have done it differently? So this is your chance to tell your story and your experience with technology and education. Thank you for coming back, Deborah. Would you like to lead this part of the discussion? You're on mute.
How did I get on mute? Because I didn't put myself on mute, but
You're still,
anyway.
can't hear you.
You can't?
No, I can hear.
Yeah.
You can hear her?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I
Yeah,
can't hear her.
great.
It's me. Okay,
It's
got it.
you. You're on mute. Okay. Well, I hope you guys all had some fruitful and interesting breakout sessions. And does anybody have any insights to share about what you talked about? Feel free, anybody. Don't be shy, because I'm going to have
Raise
to
your
ask
hand
you.
and I'll mute you. Oh, here we go from Beth.
Thanks. I'm just going to try and get my reaction off. I'm not just adding more reactions. Sorry. I still don't get how this works exactly. Anyway, what I did is, here we go. Oh, that's an appropriate one. I had, I shared the room with Shakil, and it was so enriching and so wonderful, because I was so happy that I had him in the room, because I have a son who's 27, who also just loves cars. Oh my gosh, I have something being delivered. So I will continue talking.
Okay.
What we talked about is technology, and the thing that he just loves it, and I just love it. And I grew up with thank you. I grew up with a son who also loves technology, loves cars, and didn't fit into the school system the way, he just didn't fit in. So he's very creative and very back now. And very creative, and so we talked about that a little bit, but then we talked about our journey for technology, which was one of the questions. And science is where I found out that I love technology. And although our paths were different between Shakil and I, we both found that really the value is in the journey of always learning something, and it always changing all the time. So the change and the learning and the journey is where we really find fulfillment. And then I forgot what the other question was, but the last one I remember, and that was about what would you do differently? And we both agreed we wouldn't do anything differently, because we enjoyed our journey so much, and we like the way that we learned and continue learning about technology. But there are things that we would like to learn more about. So Shakil is on Shaquille, you're on a journey, a perpetual journey, and which is great, and a myriad of different things that you're learning about design. And I'm on a journey. I'd like to know more in depth about AI, and I just completed a little course where I learned more about APIs at MasterCard. So yeah, we love it, and we want to keep going. So journey, learn by doing and keep learning.
Yes, amen. Anyone else to share their discussion? Don't
Nat,
be shy.
I know you were there.
I always
Sorry.
say to the kids, if you don't volunteer, it's going to force me to have to single some people out. So Mirna, I see you there. Hello, Mirna. How about you? Oh, do I see someone there?
Or Margot.
Margot.
Margot, Mirna, and Nat.
Yeah,
I see people.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So I felt that energy coming to me, as they say, you know, I knew I was going to be chosen. No, I was together in a room with Julia, and it was very inspiring because I mean, Julia is 28. She's almost my oldest son's age. My oldest son is 26. And I'm going to focus on the last question, which is what would you do differently? Well, not starting for the first one. I studied computer science, but I graduated in 1990. So imagine the difference between then and now, right? So that's how I got exposed to technology. I never worked as a programmer anymore. I started as a program assistant and got involved in more the strategic side of business than the technological side, but I've always been around IT. But I was going to say my husband is also an ITer, but our kids decided we don't want to have anything to do with IT. So our oldest, he's a psychologist. He works as a psychologist for children with disabilities. And we've always been telling him, why don't you be different, be unique, use technology as a tool in your career? But because he never had that knowledge, he never had the beliefs installed in him, I would say, during his educational path, educational journey from primary school to secondary school. He actually, even the university, he's always thinking, why? Psychologists, we only use technology for writing up our reports, right? And we keep saying, no, be innovative, be creative. But the thing is, and that's what I would do differently, is because we are both ITers with my husband, it seems we assumed they would understand what we meant.
Yeah.
And I wish we would have exposed them, both our kids, in a practical way so that they would have gotten interested in the technology and they would have seen the benefit and they would have been able to connect. And Julia, who I was talking on the breakout room, she was telling me, it's fun. I mean, she's a software engineer. It's great, but I miss having another domain to combine technology with. And she was telling me, but your son is actually also in a very luxurious position because he already has the domain. And what he needs to do is, you know, join it with technology. And I said, yes, it's fantastic. It's true. You know, but that's what I would have done differently. And it's not too late.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is what I hear a lot from the people that I interview, that technology is kind of the line that goes through whatever interests and domains that you have. And so a basic knowledge of technology will let you go in so many different directions.
Yes.
Anyone else? I guess Margot.
Margot? I don't know if she's still here, but her thing is here. And then there's Nat.
Nat.
Hey. Yeah.
You want to share, Nat?
Yeah. Did you unmute me? Am I still mute?
You're not on mute. We hear you.
Okay. So there were two things I found really interesting. One is the reference to in 6 months, I closed myself off and I studied again for 6 months. And I think that really is a wonderful reminder that it's not, you don't have to climb the mountain in one hit. You just need to get to a point where you understand the options that are available to you and how to use the essential stuff. So I think that's a beautiful reminder, is not to get overwhelmed with all these ranges of technology. And also with your kids, right? It's like, find something that is real to them and sit with them in that space. Don't just like it's homework. Sit with them, learn with them, combine it to the actual world you live in, because you're absolutely right. I mean, they're consumers and not developers. And we're also a lot consumers and not developers. So it's the fact that we're always being in the phase of learning, that learning can be done in units versus going back to university, which gives you like so much material, like, well, no way, dude. And that the university is, we're always going to have to learn from now on. There is no stopping to learning. So just make peace with it and do what you can. And another one is put it in your calendar. If it's not in your calendar, it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Nat.
Anyone else?
Can I add something?
Mm-hmm.
So I had a conversation with Rhonda, and in the final moment, I kind of talked about confidence, and because that is also something that Miriam hinted at. Confidence is something that can be very satisfying in the learning process. At least it has been to me, because with this computer technology, I've been able to directly have results off of the things that I was designing. I could either see how airflow would work around a car panel, or the game design stuff that I'm doing right now. So all of those things kind of lead to those eureka moments of something happening and something kind of reassuring you that what you're trying to achieve has actually been achieved. And that is, for me, has been the only way to kind of gain confidence, and that I've become kind of addicted to that feeling, because I just search for it perpetually. Like I said before already, like I need that rush of figuring something out and solving a problem, I guess. And that has, for me, been the motivator, the drive behind all of these things that I'm doing, because I've always had a base of, if I need to feel good about myself, I know that I can go design something, solve something, and whatever problem I'm facing in the world will then just become so very small, because I have this greater thing that I just achieved. And all of that, those confidence boosts, those little steps, how small they can be, it doesn't really matter. But I just know that that answer that I just questioned now gives me a piece of information that I have another question to ask tomorrow. And I think that process has been like the drive force behind me being able to 3D scan, 3D print, 3D design, make 3D games and websites, whatever. So I think that has been something that I wanted to add, like those confidence boosts for children, especially. I think is something very important in their process to grow.
Agree.
Absolutely. Well, I see it's 2:00. Does that mean that we've got to wrap up, Shay?
Well, yes, it is 2:00. I just want to thank, first of all, Deborah and Parvez and Miriam and Shaquille. Thank you guys for coming on, sharing your stories, sharing your personal stories, educating us, informing us, opening our minds and our eyes about education and tech beyond just school, which is amazing.